history project was the Cold War at home. The Cold War in the United States had a huge impact on American lives. The Berlin Wall was built on August 13, 1961 in West Berlin. This wall was built to help contain communism. One thing the United States had set up was the Loyalty Review Board. They investigated the government and threw out the ones who proved to be disloyal to the United States. They investigated over 3.2 billion employees, and 2,900 resigned. Another thing that was set up to help keep communism under control was the House Un-American Activities Committee. This first made headlines in 1947. They investigated movie industries who they thought were secretly putting propaganda in their films. They did not want them secretly spreading communism. Some men were called to testify, but most refused. Actors, writers, producers, and directors had their careers ruined because they were put on the blacklist. Tony Kahns was an American, and his neighbors did not feel comfortable living near him because they thought his father was a communist. Tony soon became a successful screenwriter, but his name was blacklisted. People who were on the blacklist had been blamed for being communists. To save himself, he had to give a list of people who were communists, but he refused and fled to Mexico. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were spies who heard the Soviet Union had exploded an atomic bomb. When they went to spy on the Soviet Union, they were captured. They denied being communists, and they denied the charges being brought against them. They both died from the electric chair in 1953, leaving their 2 sons behind. They were the first United States civilians executed for spying. Alger Hiss was accused of spying for the Soviet Union. Whittaker Chambers had a microfilm of government documents to prove he was spying. The jury convicted him of perjury for lying and sent him to jail. Joseph McCarthy started McCarthyism when he went around blaming people for being communists when there was no proof. He wanted communists out of the United States. McCarthy became president in 1952, but in 1954 he was talking bad about the U.S. Army, so he was not liked. 3 years later, he died from alcoholism. The people of the United States were terrified and fearful. In the Cuban Missile Crisis, the United States and the Soviet Union had tensions. This is the closest they were at to having a nuclear war. Because there were tensions between the countries, we also saw this in the people. They did not know if or when the missiles would reach the United States. Most people did not feel safe until the U-2 planes found the Cuban Missile. People in the United States were not only scared of the missiles, but they were also scared communism would spread throughout the United States. They were scared that communism would spread throughout the entire world. Citizens were also hurt financially because of the raising of taxes. The Red Scare got its name because the Soviet Union is red and the people were so terrified of communist control taking over. If you were thought to be a communist, you would be blacklisted, unable to get jobs or loans, and you were thought to be a murderer or terrorist. If you had a communist idea, you were persecuted and sent to jail. Most times nobody had evidence, and they were just lying, but they did not want communists taking control in the United States. Although the Cold War did not end until 1991, the falling of the wall on November 9, 1989 marked the end of the Cold War for the American people. Today, kids, even as young as 8 years old, remember the wall falling and how relieving it was. 82% of the people paid attention to the wall falling, and 50% paid very close attention to the wall falling.